the third eye from the crown chakra, or as Audley has drawn them, expanded out. And those traditions, that was just my alarm to say if I didn't stop talking by then, it was time for questions. But in the various traditions, depending on where the teacher is expressing from, he will define or she will define a different type of approach and a different type of instruction. Now, nearly all of the teachings from all the traditions, the Buddhist, the Christian, the Hindu traditions, the Sufi traditions around the world, you can find it in all of the various religions. There's a very specific set of instructions that are generally given in terms of how to know God or what to do. And some of them are simply be of service. That's at the most base, gross physical level. And and there's excellent examples of that in people like Mother Teresa. She just felt this great need, and so she went to the most difficult places in the world to serve and to teach the Christian tradition and the contemplative prayer traditions in that, but very specific instructions in how to do it. As a teacher expresses from the heart, for example, it's called bhakti yoga, and it's a devotional yoga, and it's simply the not so much the worship, but the admiration, the respect, the visualization of the teacher, and all of it flows to the teacher, and that becomes the path or the door, and that you go through. And then some of the Jnana yoga, or the more of the intellect path, it's the path of discrimination, and that you can go through and look at all the things in the world, and if you know, like gross, subtle, and physical, and then causal, and then you sort out the realms, and you say, okay, look at all these things. Oh, these things don't have shadows, but they do have a light within. Oh, I know where I am. And then I want to go beyond that. And so through the sheer power of intellect, it is said that you can discriminate and know the path or know the tradition. And they're just different traditions, but generally tied to a particular chakra or center, and it's the main expression. And that was one of the things, like Ramana Maharshi, he really was very much in the non-dual tradition, but so is the Kriya tradition that we're in is very much non-dual. It's not like there's matter and spirit so much and talked about, but when you identify with the oneness, there is only the oneness. And once you have that, but you can have that experience through any of the chakras or any of the levels. And each one of the chakras or each one of the centers expressed through the gross. There's a gross component to it, a physical body, a point that you can actually find with an acupuncture needle, and there's instruments to find this, and you can find that point on the body where that energy is centered. It's a correlate to it, or in the brain, in the mind. And then the subtle form, it kind of overlays on the body. Like when it's seen, sometimes you see a person's aura or their chakras or things. It's like you're seeing double. You're seeing a physical form, but overlaying over that, there's a subtle energy form. And if you shift awareness slightly, or in some traditions, I say, look in the periphery of vision, and those are more sensitive to the subtle forms, and you can see only the subtle component. And then if you really go into the full one, blend with the self, blend with the God self, blend with the divine self, with God, that's the true non-dual state, the causal state. And when you do that, all other things vanish. I mean, they're simply not there, and you're one in that. But each of the traditions approach it in different ways, and each of the traditions, or each of the chakras, you can experience all of the levels through each chakra. And often when they have that sense of that non-dual, often called one taste in some Ken Wilber's work, once you've tasted that divine part, the God self, or that, it kind of clouds your vision. It becomes like, it is so powerful, so overwhelming, that a person gets a sense of knowing all things, of being all powerful, of being in places, and all those are again egotistical expressions of that knowing coming back into the form, and which center that is your predominant center or point of relationship to the divine, where your center of gravity is. Are you more or less centered in the third eye or the throat or in the heart? It will affect how you express that teaching to the world. And and it can be very beautiful at every level. but it can also, it's often when you look at teachers, it's like, understand, where are they expressing from? What language do they use? And how do they talk of others? As in general, as you move up to a more comprehensive or an integral perspective of it, you see the truth in all teachings. And that's one of the things with the Advaita or Vedanta teachings, that often if you go to the core teachings in Kriya Yoga, it's like there are God, many names, but it's all one expression. But you see that oneness in all things. Like you can go into a Christian church and you can feel the divine. And you can go into a Buddhist temple and you can feel it. You can go for a walk in nature. You can sit by the sea and you can become one with that part of yourself. So does that address the question?
Yeah.
Or
thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Any others? Anybody? Any masters of calculus? I'm working on a couple of problems. I always need some help, some programming work.
Well, I'd like to share. I am not of the Audley tradition, and I'm learning from a number of people who are of the Audley tradition. Found Morning Star, which is what I'm
Yes.
a part of. And so I've gotten introduced to Audley over the years by Jim Smith and Daryl Clark and on and on and on. I mean, lots of people. In the last year or so, I met a new friend, and her husband he's a mandalist. He's about 85 or 86. And he's a follower big time of Babaji. He was invited from Babaji to go spend 3 different summers with him before Babaji transitioned back. And in meeting this man, I was so amazed at his life. And so I spent about 15 or 20 hours videotaping and creating little short DVDs of his life. And he's yet to decide that it's okay to release this information. It's about his life. But he's very, very private. But he asks Babaji all the time. I mean, he's in communication with him like all the time. He decided he would let me video basically because Babaji said it was okay, Right. I don't know Babaji, but I hear all of you guys, and of course this man is like talking with him all the time. So I'm like curious as to how does Babaji affect the Audley folks, the folks who followed, so do you talk to Babaji? Actually, you can check Imam is his name, and he's Imam the Mandalas. He's got a Facebook page. So
there's someone at your door.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, how's it going? I don't want to disturb your thing. I'll talk to you in a second.
That's my local guru son.
Yeah. I thought it was Babaji. No.
Oh, he is.
Yeah.
He doesn't know it yet.
Right. No, it's very good questions, and it's just like I have experiences with Babaji in awareness in some of the service classes that we do. Sometimes in meditation when I'm with a group, if someone has a need and I can focus on that, and that energy can become aware. And in my mind, anyone everyone has that ability. Some people are more sensitive maybe to the subtle sight, or in that subtle realm, can do it and can move into it frequently. But Babaji is a very busy guy. He's taking care of certain energy aspects in the planet, but that there's a component, and it's really your devotion to that is what opens that doorway. And there are some of Audley's students that I know spend most of their day. I know one who spends most of the day and night in meditation. From Oklahoma City, they're primarily spending most of the time with Babaji in India. They're a very devoted student. And there are some that do that, others that do. And sometimes people seem like the Baba Haridas, who actually saw him once. He was meditating by a small fire and then fell asleep and fell over into the fire. And he woke up and Babaji was lifting him out of the coals and the ashes. And he wrote a book about it. It was such a profound thing. But and others, I know others who have had experiences like that. I walked into a session once where they were doing a Kriya initiation, and up on the stage, sitting over to the side was, just like the first thing I saw when I walked in the auditorium was Babaji sitting there in a meditative pose, running an energy into to bless the event that was going on. And so experiences like that happen. I think they're individual for each person. They happen a great deal depending on the devotion within your heart and your acceptance. It's just like knowing the divine self or knowing the God self within you. Babaji resides in that awareness and in that knowing. And if you take your consciousness to that point, you will have it will express in you in some way. Maybe not in sight in the physical, like you walk in and he's sitting in the room saying, "Where have you been? I'm ready for meditation." But it may manifest in different ways, and you may see the subtle awareness or have the causal presence. If you want to stimulate that or accelerate that awareness, reading the autobiography of a yogi, studying the texts that are about him, and that helps a great deal to focus the mind there. But these are subtle realms, and some of the things that exist, they're either you create them with your own mind, or they have a life of their own. And so you have to learn to discriminate which is the true light and the true expression and the true divine. And a lot of times your feelings are much better at interpreting it than your sight. Because I always say any good wizard or any good magician can create brilliant white light, and it's so easy to delude people that are looking for true bright light. It's just like that's another image in the mind. And so rather than see the reflection of the bright light in the pond, look into the sky and see the source, your own experience, your own being. So maybe that helps a little.
Thank you.
There are people that, take tours to see Babaji. I met a group of them here in the Bay Area.
Hey, Ben, in your experience, do you have any sense that Babaji and Guru Rinpoche, or also known as Baba Sambhava, are the same entity?
I don't have any experience of that. I've heard things like that, but there's everything amazing, out there in terms of stories and that type, and stories in each of the lineages and the traditions. I don't experience it in that way. For my experiences have been as an individual entity or being that is really in a role to be a guardian of the spiritual powers or spiritual awareness on this planet at this time. And he's been around a long time. For at least a couple thousand years. And I know the first experience I had with him when Audley got a little group, and there was George and Gary Clinton, George Proctor, Gary Clinton, and I were with Audley. And he said, I want to take you. And George and Audley had been meditating with Babaji for some time. And so we went over to his house, and he said, we're going to have a little meditation. And I went in and they turned off the light, and we all went into meditation, and Audley was kind of the guide. And the next thing I knew, we were flying through the air, and then we were sitting in front of Babaji. And it seemed like it only lasted a couple of minutes, but it actually was a couple of hours in the time here. And as I came back into the physical awareness of Audley's little meditation room, I was kind of freaked out of my mind. I thought not only did, it happened, but I saw it, and it was like, the aspects of it were so real that it was overwhelming to me. And I was confident that all of these three other gentlemen that I with were totally had lost it and had gone into another world. And as soon as I could get out of that room, my anxiety would be much released, and I would never go back. I promised God I would never return. But then after a couple of days, I thought, wow, that was one of the most amazing things I ever experienced. And I ran to Audley's the next day to share with him that I didn't think he was crazy, and I definitely wanted to go back, and I really liked it a lot. So that's kind of how the mind, it was so different the first time that it was overwhelming to me and created a state of anxiety. And but that's just like small farm boy, meets guru. What do you expect? Here we are. Okay, does that make sense, or any follow on? I can't hear you, David. Oh, there we go.
I've heard it from other people, and I think I saw George 2 or 3 years ago, and he sort of had that sense that they were the same being.
Yeah.
But from the teachings, they feel like the teachings are very similar. They just kind of manifest in different lineages.
Well, it is somewhat challenging. If George says it, I put a lot of I've had a lot of experience with George, and so I trust his sight and his knowing and his awareness. But the challenge I've seen with a lot of teachers, it's just like I'll see a teacher and they'll start talking about another being. Like when Audley would start talking about Jesus, it's just like he would become so filled with the Christ consciousness that that's what was expressing through him. And and I've seen other teachers that when they relate to either their divine self or to some of the great teachers, it's just like their knowing in that sense, they become one with that teacher or that expression, and so it very powerfully comes through them and expresses through them. And if the teacher is very egotistical and they have that sense and awareness, they often think, well, I'm this teacher from another lifetime or that. I find that's generally not the case, but if their devotion is strong and they identify with it and they bring that awareness and that teaching into them, it expresses in such a way that it looks like they are that person. But then when they get back to being their own personal self and they start talking to you and want you to drink a scotch with them or something like that, which Audley was prone to do sometimes, then you realize that it's not that same expression in that way. So it's how to make sense of these things and these experiences that we have in our life that's often what makes the real difference for me. Okay, thanks. Yes.
Okay, Ben, I have a question.
Okay. Hi, Mary.
Hi. I'm noticing just a tremendous amount of energy right now. I've been buzzing since this whole thing started. And of course, this happens at retreats and, at different gatherings and stuff. Well, how does that work?
It's really kind of amazing. It works a great deal on, things are awakened within each one of us as we turn our focus toward the teaching or toward the guru, or in our case, we had the same tradition, the same awareness with Audley. And if we think about him together or focus, that generates a tremendous amount of energy. And it talks about it in all of the spiritual traditions. Like in the Bible, it says, if two or more are gathered in my name, the Holy Spirit is in the presence.
Right.
And that's a beautiful way to describe what happens. But if we if a little group of us get together, even though we're scattered out all around the country or maybe all around the world, we get together and we have that a shared common knowledge, and we have a shared common teaching, and then it kind of activates or accelerates the awakening of that feeling within each one of us. And I know when, sometimes in the meditation or the retreat setting a little more, it can be even more powerful. If we do things that will help us to synchronize, like when I'm doing a lecture, and if you're in agreement with it, it helps to build that within you, and it helps to, I feel that awareness and that energy. If we're in chanting together or movement together, we all can get much more aware, or the energy can increase to a level that sometimes it's overwhelming with people. And so a lot of different things that express, but simply the fact that, we're getting together and talking about the good old days, or, talking about Audley. We're sharing stories of the guru and trying to understand the path, and we're trying to maybe understand how did we end up in such different places. I mean, we've got so from just a small group of people in Oklahoma City, now there's teachers all around the country, all around the world, that are teaching different aspects of it. Some are teaching something that seemed to me to be fairly in line with what I thought Audley was saying. Some are teaching something that I'm almost unrelated to. It's just like, well, I wonder, I missed that lecture. I missed that part. And so, and a lot of my exploration personally has been to try to make sense of all these things and to put it in some sort of perspective to where I can see that everybody is doing the highest that they know, and they're doing their best. May not look like it to me, but they're doing their best to keep, be a guardian of truth or to the teaching, or to share it as they know it. And so that's one of the things that I have increasingly felt is a need to share and to kind of help people remember, the experiences they had with Audley, and trying to get people to express them, to write out their experience with him, post it online, or post it on. We'll have a website soon that is dedicated to Audley Allison, but it's really to capture the memories and the feelings of that. And then also, I think the stories help to motivate others. And as we get older, I think it's increasingly important that we make sure that there are younger people that have that knowledge, have that awareness, have that anchor in the divine self, and have that teaching to be able to carry it forward. And so when we come back and take another body, Audley's not around, or his expression of the divine is not here, maybe one of our friends will help us remember. Oh, you remember that old guy in Oklahoma City? Oh yeah, wow. And then you come alive. But that's what we're doing. But I'm finding that as people get together and talk about it, it's good for people. And I know there's many groups around that have done it, and and I came to a point where I felt, well, I need to do some of this, and so I'm going to do some lectures and try to share it from my perspective. Does that help?
Sure.
Okay.
I have to go, guys, but this has been great as always, and thanks for letting me kind of be a honorary Audleyite. I learn about him from listening to you guys. So thanks. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye. Any other questions? Then it must be time to go.
I've got one last question. When are you posting that agenda of different topics?
I don't know, in a few minutes, if you like.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, no, some of these things I work on and then just put them together. And I do consider most of these lectures for me are kind of a rough draft. They all need a lot of work. And so I continue to work on them. And, after I kind of get through a series, maybe a year or so, I really want to refine the overall presentation of them and try to put better teaching materials to be able to share with others. Like some of the students that I know now, they're really at a point where they want to start teaching and try to make sure they've got drawings and guides and maps and explanations and so they can handle a teaching of a class. And there's some that want to even have a meditation center and do things. So it's great, and there's a lot of them. So I think the teaching is going to flourish, and the teaching that we're a part of, we're fortunate, I think, in a sense that if they burn all the books and they kill all the teachers, all you need to do to know the divine is go inside yourself, and if you just remember, be still and know that you are God, or that I am God. That's the important part. And so the true teaching is I know there's one of I can't remember, maybe it's Buckminster Fuller, one of them, that said, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. It's not the true Buddha. And I think that's people often react like, oh, that sounds like a harsh thing to do. I thought Buddhists were supposed to be pacifists. But the teaching is that if you think it's outside of you, it's not the true teaching. It's not the true guru. It's not the true awareness. That only is within. And it's in, in what I would call the causal plane, or the God self, the Godhead, the soul. That's where it is. And once you get to that point, then you have an experience of all things and all beings. So we're all there. So can't be destroyed, can't be burned by fire, wet by water. All the traditional scriptures say, but it's simply the expression of the divine. Maybe that was too much.
Ben, where do we look for that agenda?
I'll post it on the Audley Allison page on Facebook, and we're also, maybe since people are here and it's a smaller group, there's Connie and I have been talking about doing an Audley Allison group on Facebook, and we may set that up. Groups have some differences. The page is a great place to host, and I do it kind of as a memorial to Audley, and a point where people can go to. And we want a website, but there is a thing called Facebook groups, and in terms of hosting things like this and do it, in some sense it's a little easier. So we're going to explore that and see if we can set that up. But you can send out notices for meetings and post things, and you can share them in a little different way, and you can make groups either private, by invitation only. There's a number of ways to do it, and I'm more of the stream of just open it up and present everything. I think people that are aware will open to it, and the ones that aren't simply won't see it. But not everybody shares that perspective. Is that satisfactory? We'll put it up soon. Okay. And if you send me your email, I'll just email it to you. It's just a Word document, so it's no issue. Send me a text. That's often the easiest way. If you have my phone number, just text me and I can send it back. And I sometimes forget to check email anymore. I'll go for a few days. So I just tell people, if you send me an email, please send me a text and say, check your email. Any other questions?
So Ben, these classes are also going to be posted on that Facebook page. Is that right?
Right. Yeah, the lectures are posted. Some of the question and answer stuff we may do. That's parts. I'd like to find a better format to do a lot of these things. The questions are excellent, but it's just like, do people want to do it? And maybe we'll formalize it. And in time, we'll have something that's a little more useful. But you have to start somewhere, so we're starting.
It's already useful.
Okay. That's good. That's the nice thing about start anywhere, and it works out. Like I had one teacher, and he in mathematics, and he said, it's just like, I was concerned about where do I begin. And he said, the nice thing about mathematics is you can just take any problem and you figure out what you need to solve that problem, and you'll have to know half of mathematics to be able to get the solution. And so start anywhere, And I found that true in business and spiritual life and anything. The biggest thing is start, and then persistence in continuing to do it. And just like in meditation, you know, start, meditate every day if possible, same time, same place, you know, and do more and share, find other people to talk to that are in like mind. And so it helps you to do that. And that actually quickens the spirit or accelerates the process. And you know, and thinking about, like, I know some people say, you know, Audley's not here. Well, I don't have that experience. You know, it's somehow or another, he's stuck in me, in my head, you know, in my awareness, in my heart. You know, it's just like, you know, all you have to do is have devotion to that teaching, to that experience, to listen to the stories of others that have had it, and it awakens and it quickens within you. And I know there's a statement somewhere, and somebody was asking me about it the other day, where if you find enlightenment, you know, it affects multiple generations in your family, forward in time and backward in time. And I never fully understood that, but I see it now, that as the soul becomes into greater awareness and greater light, that wherever the cell is that I'm working on in my soul, as that becomes more conscious or more aware, more enlightened in that sense, then I can see it radiates out into all the parts around me, which are my family, my friends, you know, and all those. So it has an effect. But that's part of what we're trying to do, is share what we know. And I encourage everybody, somehow or another, communicate or share, or just simply sit there and radiate. You know, go into a park and just sit there and meditate, and it will affect all those around you. It will improve the world and make it a better place. Any other questions?
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I appreciate your time. Thank you all. We'll see you in a couple of weeks or sooner. Okay.
Okay, great.